everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fun with Flags with me, 50, and my good friend Soda. How are you doing, sir? How's your day been?
It's been pretty quiet. So it's odd. It's February, but it feels like early spring when it's supposed to be like snow and stuff outside. It's really, really weird temperatures here.
Oh, it's getting warmer over there?
It's getting warmer a lot earlier.
Really? Because,
Yeah,
I mean, it just got warmer over here, but I mean, we're used to it. So,
yeah. No, we're not. So but what's interesting is like in the morning around when I get up, it's -2 degrees Celsius, and then in afternoon when I'm off work, it's 7 degrees Celsius.
hmm. The weird thing is, in recent years, we've kind of gotten used to winter starting late and ending late. So,
Mm.
but not right now. It's getting warmer in February, so it's a bit weird. Anyways, we're not here to talk about the weather. Am I right? We're here to talk about something else. And as people who watch the show know, and namely my mom, every week we have this back and forth where I teach my good friend Soda something he probably didn't know about Israel, and he teaches me something he that I most likely didn't know about Canada. And this week is my turn, and I have decided on a topic. I was gonna do it anyway at some point, but recent events have sort of helped me make the decision. Obviously, it's still technically speaking within the confines of Black History Month, and now we're gonna do something slightly related to the African nation, but mostly it's about Israel, and it's actually incredibly relevant to what's going on in Israel right now. And I am, of course, talking about the famous Operation Entebbe. Have you ever heard of this?
Can't say I have.
Didn't think you would. It's not really something that is talked about outside of here.
Mm.
But like I said, it's incredibly relevant considering today's uh, worldwide climate around the Middle East. So I have some notes, and I'm gonna go right in and read them out to you. Of course, as per usual, I took these notes off the Israeli Wikipedia, but I didn't just copy pasted it. I sort of came up with my own shorthand narrative because I didn't want you to get bored by me just reading out some stuff. So here we go. Operation Entebbe, also known as Operation Jonathan or Operation Thunderball. Can we
Okay.
can we just acknowledge how ridiculous the word thunderball is?
Yes, yes, we can, and that is also the name of a James Bond movie for
I know
a
who
reason.
came up who came up with the concept of a thunderball.
I have no clue. I haven't even seen the movie.
Thunder is sound, not a lightning bolt. It's sound. How is that a ball? Anyways, neither of us came up with that, so
Yeah.
don't come after us. Anyways, so Operation Entebbe was an IDF operation for the release of 105 Israeli hostages from German and Palestinian terrorists from the city of Entebbe in Uganda on July 4th, 1976. Anything sounds striking about that particular date?
Sorry, July 4th, 1976. You said
Yep.
that is 200 years after the founding of the United States of America.
Yep, the bicentennial. So while the Americans were celebrating, this is what we were doing. Okay, so let's start off
You know how
with
I know that?
how
Rocky. That's when the fight takes place.
the first Rocky is 76, not
The
74.
bicentennial. It takes place in that year.
The first
The
Rocky?
first one takes place in that 200th year, so that's how I know it.
Hey, history! Yeah, so while the whole world was celebrating Rocky, this is what we were dealing with. Okay, so on June 27th, 1976, a an Airbus A300 airplane from Air France in flight 139 from Tel Aviv to Paris was hijacked after making uh, in between stop, a connection stop in Athens in Greece. It was hijacked by two German terrorists from the organization known as the Revolutionary Cells and two Palestinian terrorists from, get this, the Populist Front for the Liberation of Palestine External Operations. That's a mouthful.
Dear Lord.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, it gets worse.
That
Uh,
sounds like something out of Monty Python.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they got the name.
Yeah.
I just wonder which one came first.
Mm.
But yeah, so the plane was at the time of kidnapping. The plane had 240 passengers. Sorry, 248 passengers on it and 12 crew members. Uh, the German hijackers were Wilfried Bose, probably mispronounced that name, but he's a terrorist, so who cares?
Yeah.
Wilfried Bose and Brigitte Kuhlmann. I found a picture, but I can't really confirm if that's the real person, so I decided not to show the image. Couldn't find a single image of the two Palestinian terrorists, so
Oh,
that's what. So we're just gonna go with the names.
that's
And what?
so that's weird.
Yeah, well, archives being what they are.
Yeah.
So the two Palestinian kidnappers were Jail el Jail el Arja and, oh boy,
Hmm.
Abd el Latif Abd el Razak el Samarai.
Wow.
Talk about a mouthful.
No kidding.
Okay, the plane was first hijacked to Benghazi in Libya for fueling purposes, which took over. Which word am I looking for? Which took about 7 hours of
Lay,
fueling.
a layover?
No, I just is it? You know what? Never mind. It took 7 hours to fuel a plane. That's where I was going with.
That's a long time.
Okay, so at this point, three more Palestinian terrorists joined the plane, and one Israeli citizen with British citizenship managed to be released from the plane by faking pregnancy. Okay,
Smart.
yeah, very smart. Uh, After which point, the plane continued on to the city of Entebbe in Uganda, 3,800 kilometers from Israel. And yes, we are using kilometers because that's the measurement of distance we use in my region. I don't know
And
about other
mine too.
places.
In my country as well.
Oh, even better. So,
So
uh,
just basically the states are the only ones that don't use it.
really, I thought England used miles as well.
They might be the only two.
Weird. Well, maybe we should look that up one day. So, anyways, this is a map of the journey itself. You can see the plane leaving from Tel Aviv in Israel all the way to Athens, making a in between stop in Benghazi, and then all the way to Uganda. So this is now you have more or less um the the geography of the situation. And if you look closely, you'll notice that Israel is slightly larger than it's supposed to be. It's because this is 1976, after the Six Day War, where Israel conquered the Sinai Peninsula and also extended its territory as a result. That's going to be important for later on. So uh, on June 29th, the kidnappers, hijackers, in Hebrew, it's the same word, so I'm never quite sure which one to use in which context. So the kidnappers separated between the Jewish and Israeli hostages and the non-Jewish Israeli hostages, the hostages of other nationalities. Yeah, just try to imagine the image of Jews undergoing selection by German terrorists. Yeah, that's not triggering anything from the past or anything. Am I right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So at this the non-Israeli hostages were released a day or so after this separation of the selection. The pilot of the plane, which I forgot to look up a picture before, so I apologize. But the pilot of the plane, Michel Bakos, insisted on staying with the Israeli hostages out of responsibility and a sense of duty for his passengers, as did the rest of the crew of the plane. Uh,
Smart man.
After the operation happened, Bakos, Michel Bakos, the pilot, received a special accommodation and recognition from the Israeli Prime Minister at the time, Yitzhak Rabin. And why this is the only good picture I could find,
Really?
I will never understand.
I was gonna say, why did you look at the one where it looks like he's picking his nose?
Yeah, it's the best one I could find. There's another one I found where he's too far away, surrounded by other people, and it's hard to pick out which one he is. I didn't want him to get confused, so I had to go with this one. Of course, I could have picked out pictures from him later in life, but it's out of context. I wanted it to be connected to um, this situation.
As the prime minister, you'd think he'd have more pictures of him up there.
Again, I wanted a picture from this specific event because there's pictures of him
Oh,
later in life. That's
gotcha,
what I meant.
gotcha.
Okay, so the kidnappers' demands were the release of 53 terrorists and anarchists from prison, 45 Palestinian prisoners, and 8 German anarchists. 40 from Israel and 40 Palestinian from Israel and 5 Palestinian from Kenya, and 6 German anarchists from Germany, one from France, and one from Switzerland. In addition to that, the hijackers slash kidnappers also demanded a financial ransom, as in money, for each hostage that they will release. The hijackers gave out an ultimatum to the state of Israel that if their demands will not be met by the 1st of July, 2 hostages will be executed every hour until their demands were met, or until the last of the hostages will be killed, whichever comes first, of course. Uh, after negotiation between the state of Israel and the kidnappers, the ultimatum was pushed to July 4th. After several hesitations and conflictions about this operation, the Israeli cabinet eventually came to the decision that of going forward with this operation, essentially giving the green light to Operation Thunderbolt. Of course, Prime Minister, and I'm sorry I have to use this picture again. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin at first was a bit hesitant about this operation, but he was later convinced to go ahead with it by the Minister of Defense at the time, Shimon Peres. And you're saying that name without the accent, and just doesn't feel right. Okay, so like I said, on the 3rd of July, the go ahead was given to have a big extraction operation by the IDF. Now, by this point, a Jewish woman with Canadian citizenship named Ninette Morano somehow managed to be released as part of the non-Jewish Israeli nationalities a few days earlier, and as under the guise of not being Jewish. And as soon as she got released, she immediately contacted the Mossad in France, because Mossad is everywhere, where she gave away exact specific details on all the kidnappers, all the hostages, the entire structure of the airport itself, the runway, the complex where all the hostages were being kept. She gave detailed maps, illustrations, and sketches, all of which were taken to and analyzed by the Israeli Defense Force. Now, some reason the um, Wikipedia doesn't really necessarily specify if she drew the whole thing, all these charts and maps herself, or if they used the sketch artist. But well, the point is now the Israeli government had intel on the whole location, and they knew exactly where they needed to go, where they needed to operate. All right. The operation itself went ahead on 11:20 p.m. on the 3rd of July, uh, 40 minutes before midnight, 40 minutes before the actual 4th of July. Now, the way this, what are you doing? Oh, well, sorry, I just heard noises. So basically, the way the operation itself went was four planes left from the city of Ophira, which at the time was in the Sinai Peninsula, which, as I mentioned, was part of Israel at the time because of the Six-Day War. 2 years after this operation, the Sinai Peninsula was given back to Egypt as part of the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. Well, it's a whole other thing, but for that particular moment, it was under Israeli control. And so, hey, Bear, how are you doing, Bear? So yeah, from at that moment, particular point, the four planes left from the city of Ophira in the Sinai Peninsula. It went over the Red Sea at very low altitude in order to avoid detection from the Ugandan radar, so they wouldn't be spotted or detected, so they can reach Uganda completely unnoticed and surprise the hijackers uh, through through the airport. All right, now this right here is a map of the exact route that the planes took. The black line that you see is the actual operation itself, and the brown line that you see right next to it is the way back to Israel.
Okay.
Right now, we're focusing on the black line, not the brown. All right, so around the time of midnight, the four planes left from the city of Ophira through the Red Sea into Uganda. Now, the interesting bit here is that the planes were already in the air when the green light was given. So, like, they were already in the air, and if the cabinet chose not to go ahead with the operation, they would have just turned right back around. But I mean, they were already ready for this operation one way or the other. Now, the operation itself, uh, and this is really the interesting part. So the first plane landed in the runway of the airport, follow, uh, following a British cargo plane, which took off minutes before. So like this was the last flight of that Ugandan airport for the day, for the night, to be more specific. And so when the British plane took off, the runway lights were still on. They hadn't had time to turn them off yet, and the Israeli plane took advantage of that and landed right before they turned off the lights. And as the plane was landing, soldiers uh, disembarked from the plane and started setting up their own set of landing lights for the other three planes that came right after it. Shortly after landing, the second plane destroyed the entire Ugandan air defense force, to avoid to avoid problems later on when the plane were trying to leave after the operation itself. And as the IDF forces started to disembark from the three main planes, they rode on Land Rover Jeeps owned by the IDF, led by a black Mercedes, which was meant to essentially be um, under the guise of the main presidential car of the president of Uganda at the time, Idi Amin. It was a well known thing that
I know who
Uganda.
he is.
You know who he is.
Oh yeah, he's well known around the world.
Good. So that just helps the story. So it was well known at the time that Ugandan officials, especially high-ranking government and military officials, rode these black Mercedes. So it was then utilized for the operation. Of course, the car itself was an Israeli taxi, which was painted black for
Hmm,
the operation. And of course, the Israeli soldiers were dressed as Ugandan soldiers to help with the ruse.
nice license plate.
Yeah, 50997.
There's a 5 on there?
Yep, that circle thing.
Oh, that
If you
looks.
remember that, we had an episode where we talked
That's
about
right.
Arabic numbers.
That's right. Sorry.
Okay, so this black Mercedes was leading the charge, followed by a series of Israeli IDF um, Land Rover jeeps. Now, as they rode in the dead of night through the Ugandan airport, there was a danger of being spotted by some of the Ugandan soldiers. So the commander in chief, which we'll get to in a minute, the commander in charge of the ground assault, ordered to shoot the Ugandan soldiers with silencers so as to not attract any attention. Of course, during the operation itself, the IDF soldiers were instructed to avoid killing the Ugandan soldiers as much as possible and mainly focus on getting the hostages out and eliminating the terrorists. Of course, uh, things happen, and like I said, minimize Ugandan casualties as much as possible. But if you need to, you need. There's no other choice. Okay, so Land Rover Jeeps, Ugandan, blah 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 blah. Okay, so that's them storming into the complex itself. Now, once they've reached the complex itself, as they arrived and started storming the complex, the commander of the ground assault uh, of course, ordered to shoot the Ugandan soldiers earlier. Felt like they weren't ready to they weren't going to reach the complex in time. As soon as the bullets started flying, they knew that the terrorists would be alerted to their presence. So he came up with an alternative route to reach the complex faster and earlier to save the hostages first. And while he was leading the charge, he was shot by one of the Ugandan soldiers and died of his wounds several minutes later while the rest of the soldiers stormed the complex. As the soldiers were storming the complex, and a very quick skirmish began between the IDF soldiers and the hijacking terrorists, slightly uh, expanded upon by the Ugandan soldiers. All, uh, all seven terrorists were killed by Israeli IDF soldiers. However, one female hostage was shot dead by one of the terrorists. Another male hostage was shot accidentally by an Israeli soldier, and a third male hostage was killed in crossfire between one of the terrorists, one of the Palestinian terrorists, and one of the IDF soldiers. And by crossfire, I mean, of course, uh, there's no actual way to confirm which was the killing blow. But for the other two, it was more or less a confirmation. So, with three hostages dead at this point, all of the terrorists were killed, and the remaining 102 hostages were released and taken back to the fourth plane that landed, which landed mostly empty, so it can house all 100 plus hostages and take them back to Israel. Now, a short time after the operation was successful, there was a fourth female hostage who was released earlier to go to a hospital in Kampala, which was the capital of Uganda. And shortly after the success of this operation, Idi Amin ordered her to be shot as a payback for the success of the operation. Needless to say, he was kind of pissed. that this whole thing happened. All right, her body was returned to Israel 3 years after the fact. So
Wow.
they just kept her body there cold for
Why?
3 years because they're assholes. Like, I mean, this guy was so mad that the operation, which by the way he was kind of hosting, like he was negotiating with Israel, but at the time
He
he was
brought it
more
on
or less
himself.
what?
He brought it on himself.
Yeah, he was kind of he was siding with the terrorists and was siding with uh, communist Russia at the time, or rather the USSR, and you know that side of the political spectrum.
Basically, brought it on himself. Yeah. Okay.
And basically brought it on himself, uh, which is no, it is what it is. So yeah, after the successful operation, after all 102 remaining hostages, and of course, the bodies of the three dead hostages were loaded onto the plane. The plane left from the city of Entebbe to the city of Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya, for a very quick refueling session before making the flight over Ethiopia and over the Red Sea back to Ophira in the Sinai Peninsula for to have the released hostages uh, reunite with their families. At the end of the day, the all seven of the hijackers slash kidnappers, or just call them what they are, terrorists. All seven of them died, and around 45 of the Ugandan soldiers perished in the crossfire.
Holy
On
shit.
the on the Israeli side, as I mentioned, only three hostages were killed. Four, if you include the woman who was killed after the fact, and only one Israeli soldier died in that whole skirmish.
Hmm.
The leader of the ground assault, the one who was shot by the Ugandan soldiers, as soon as they all reached the complex, the again the commander in chief of the whole operation, the war hero, Colonel Jonathan Netanyahu. Does the
No.
name, does the name sound familiar?
Not. No.
Yeah,
Really?
the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu, the
Oh
current
wow.
prime minister. At least there was one decent person that came out of that family.
Yeah.
So of course, Jonathan Netanyahu became a legendary hero. After the fact, there's several memorials all over Israel to commemorate this. One in my city, as a matter of fact. And yeah, so uh, that's basically it. At first I was gonna have some more pictures of some of the other people involved, but for some reason decided uh, not to. But for people keeping track in history, as I mentioned, the leaders of the operation on the Israeli side, of course, were Prime Minister at the time Yitzhak Rabin and Minister of Defense Shimon Peres, the Foreign Minister Igal Alon, the General Chief of Staff Motagu. That is a nickname, by the way. His name is Mordecai Gur or Mota. Uh, the His second in command Yekutiel Adam. I might let's just say I know his grandson.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he was. We served together. We didn't. We did boot camp together.
Mm.
His grandson is a world famous pop star, by the way. Just saying.
Oh god.
So I basically did a boot camp with a celebrity.
Oh, that's cool.
Anyway, the commander of the Air Force, Benny Peled, the commander of the ground forces, Dan Shomron, uh, the head of the intelligence office, Rafi Harlev, head of the paratrooper command, Matan Vilnai, and the head of Mossad, Yitzhak Hoffi. That's about it. Like I said, Netanyahu, Mookie Betzer, Shaul Mufaz, leaders, Ehud Barak. But I mean, these are all people we can kind of save for a different episode. Hint, hint. But that's more or less the story of Operation Entebbe. Of course, it was known as Operation Thunderbolt as part of as far as the IDF was concerned. To the general public, it's known as Operation Entebbe, but it's also was named Operation Jonathan in memory of Netanyahu's sacrifice. And yeah, this is it. I did well. Didn't expect it to go this fast, but here it
No,
is.
oh,
It
that's
was
a
a quick.
different change of
It
pace.
was a what?
Different change of pace.
Yeah, it was a very quick in and out, just like the operation itself. This is a nice, fun reminder of much better times, I would say, when the state of Israel was actually good at getting hostages back to their territories. And of course, this is just a very harsh reminder that there are still 132 hostage 134 hostages still being held captive by Hamas in Gaza, and we need to bring them home now. Probably won't happen in an operation like this, but one way or the other, most of them are still alive. They need to come back home, and yeah, 50 years ago and still relevant today.
Hmm.
You see what one Netanyahu did and what the other one did.
Yeah.
I think I'm just beating a dead horse at this point.
um, so I quickly threw this into Google a few minutes ago, and I saw something that I don't know if it would fall into that future episode you referred to. They did a movie on your side about it called Operation Thunderbolt.
I did a couple movies. I mean, there's one
Okay.
I go
The
ahead.
1977 one.
Didn't see that one.
Okay, so you want to hear a fun fact on how that movie's connected to Hollywood?
Go ahead. Well,
Okay,
it's a movie.
so
Just kidding.
do you know who Menahem Golan is?
Yeah, I've heard the name. Didn't
Okay,
see the movies, but
you ever heard of Canon Films, the producers of the or Masters of the Universe movie, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace?
he was involved with that piece of
He,
trash.
him and his cousin founded Canon Films.
Okay,
They are like there's a documentary about them from over here
about Menachem Golan.
about them about Canon Films and them. Yeah, their films.
Okay,
If you're ever interested, well, we can watch it. I have it, but I can find it and we can watch it. I think you would like it.
all right. In the meantime, they made several movies, as you mentioned. They made several movies about this operation. One, the most recent one, I believe, was in 2018, called 7 Days in Entebbe, and I actually watched it before doing this episode to get ready, to get prepared, to get make sure I got some of the facts right. Of course, it's a movie, so they didn't necessarily stick to the whole facts, but it's an interesting experience if you want to watch it.
It's based on a true story, not it is a true story.
It's not a documentary. And you know what? To be fair, not the biggest fan of it because watching you would almost think that the German terrorists are the good guys and Israelis are the bad guys.
Oy.
Almost,
Hmm.
almost. I'll say that. But
Jesus.
yeah, some really good Israeli actors in it, and Daniel Bruhl's in it, by the way. Daniel Bruhl and Rosamund Pike.
That's right. You had mentioned it to me. Yeah.
When did I mention that?
I could have sworn you had mentioned it to me because I
I
remember.
literally found out about this today. When could I have mentioned that?
Then it must be something else with Daniel Bruhl because when I threw this into Google, a image from the one you just referenced popped up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember Daniel Bruhl doing something like this." But I must have been confusing it with another conversation about the guy then because
Probably.
wow.
But yeah, I suggest watching it if you like.
I like Rosamund Pike. She's a great actress.
Yep. Most movies about her anyway. Like I said, this movie really does humanize the German terrorists a bit more.
All right.
So that's it. That's all I've got.
Okay,
Didn't,
so
really didn't think this would be this fast, but okay, here we go.
well, okay then. So my topic for next episode is Canada's influence in the early years of Hollywood. Like you'd be surprised at how many people who helped build Hollywood into what it is were Canadian.
To be fair, many of them were still helping to keep Hollywood going. Are Canadian too.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like the people that helped
Early days.
the early days, the people that helped build it, the
All right.
foundation.
The people who build the Hollywood sign.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah.
Really? I was just making a
Oh
joke.
no, but I mean, like basically that era of when Hollywood became Hollywood.
Cool.
Yeah, when major studios were founded, when the first studio was founded, when Charlie Chaplin was discovered, that type of stuff. Yeah, that's it.
Plugs.
Oh yeah, well, as usual, you can find me at my Instagram and Twitter at soda_the_saxman, and on this channel doing my usual shenanigans with 50.
Cool. And you can find me fulfilling my civic duty by this coming Tuesday by voting for in the mayoral elections. Go Rubik! And when I'm not doing that, you can also find me on this show every Thursday, Farmer Flags, and every hopefully, if I remember to send the thumbnail on time, every Monday on The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, where I talk about The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, Doctor Who, and I talk even more Doctor Who on my own YouTube channel, where I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way up to 2023, unless the BBC decides to block them because they're assholes 2 weeks in a row. But
Hey,
thankfully, disputes work. So go ahead and watch those because those need the views because blockage. Anyways, you can also check out all the other wonderful channels from the wider Bedwars at large, like Something to Talk About, Galaxy Geeks, Multiverse of Geekdom, Movie Lovers Unite, The Midnight Cinema, Eternal Views, and of course, in the front row, which is not pictured in this thumbnail. And just a quick reminder to you all, we did this for the love of this guy. I wonder if what he would have thought about this story. And as a matter of fact, I wonder if he actually would have watched the Entebbe movie we just talked about.
he might have. You never know.
It's interesting. It's an interesting thing. We hope we could have asked him, and of course, we're doing this in his loving memory. And always remember to let your geek flag fly. That's all we're really asking for. And whether it's a Ugandan flag or an Israeli flag. And just another very quick reminder: there are still 134 hostages being held hostage by Hamas. This is more than the hostages that were released in Operation Entebbe 50 years ago and counting. And they've been there for far too long. It's almost 140 days. These people were released after about a week. So just keep that into perspective. So keep them in your hearts and bring them home now. I'm Israel Chai. So thank you for watching if you have, and until the next one, everyone. Goodbye.